Hi, my name is Neil Scroxton and today's video covers off who you need to employ when you're looking to make a planning application for a new home. If you're joining us for the first time, please subscribe and tick the little bell next to it so that you can get updated when new content comes online. And if you're back to watch another video, again, welcome, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please feel free to do so. I've been designing and building one-off houses now for about 20 years. As the Managing Director of Scroxton & Partners, we get involved in the planning side, the architecture side and the construction of our projects. And I've seen great changes over the past 20 years with the amount of effort and the amount of investment that people have to put into planning applications to help them get over the line. And a lot of that is to do with the new standards that we have in construction and making sure that buildings are not just fit for purpose but fit for the future. So today I'm going to be talking about the 10 consultants. That's right, I said 10 consultants that I think most planning applications require as standard these days. It's give or take. You know, sometimes you maybe only need 8 of those or 7 of those. Sometimes you might actually need a couple more than the 10. Each project is different, but in general, these are the 10 that you should be thinking about if you're looking to do a new build home, a self-build, or a barn conversion. So first up, no surprises here, I'm an architect, you should be working with an architect. There are 2 types, if you like, of professional out there that offer architectural services. There are qualified architects and there are architectural technicians. I'm not going to get into a professional bashing of the difference between architects and architectural technicians. Essentially, the difference is the level of training that it takes to become an architect or a technician. Architects are minimum 7 years, technicians are 3 years, and then beyond that, being an architect is a protected profession, and so anybody that calls themselves an architect has to be on the ARB register. And what the ARB does is then police architects and is there for an extra level of protection for clients and for somewhere else to go to complain should you have an issue with your architect on your project. And that's not something that you can do with technicians. So you need an architect or a technician to help guide the project. You know, they're going to be the ones that are going to bring everything together. Particularly leading up to planning permission, you know, it's your architect that's going to collate all of the information that you need to get the project over the line, and they're going to be the ones that are going to do the majority of liaison for you, because there is a lot of work that goes into a planning permission these days. It's not as simple as just drawing some pretty pictures and sending it off to the council. The second professional that you might need is a planning consultant. Now, this is something that's sort of come about over the last, I suppose, 10 to 20 years, and planning consultants have been used more and more on projects. And the reason being is because the planning system is getting so complicated that it's actually very, very difficult to keep up with the changes and to be an expert in everything all the time. And so having a planning consultant on board, particularly for some of the more contentious projects, can really help to find better arguments to help get your project over the line. They're meant to be there to support the design and to show how the design meets the planning policy and the local policy that affect your project. And because quite often planners have worked within planning departments, what you'll find is that they speak a very similar language to the planning department, and it just gives that little bit more reassurance for a case officer if another planner has had a look and agrees with how the policy should be utilised for your project. So next up, you are going to need a survey. You're going to need somebody to come out and do a measured survey. If you're dealing with a fresh plot of land, someone's going to have to come and take levels across that plot of land. They're going to need to find out whether there's any power cables or any water pipes or anything like that might be in the ground that could cause a problem for the project further down the line. This is not something that you should be skipping. It's one of those items that it can cost a little bit of money up front and it can seem like it's not worth it, but what is the point of getting planning permission for something if you then come to do your detailed design and find that there's a whopping great HV cable splitting your site in half? If you're dealing with an existing building, you know, again, that survey is going to be really important to make sure that the project kicks off on the right foot. You can skip it by all means, but all that will happen is you'll be facing additional costs to redraw the project once you get over the planning line. So the next one is probably going to be an energy consultant of some kind. They may be a mechanical electrical engineer, or they may be a specialist energy consultant. What they're going to do is, certain councils now want you to prove at design stage that your building will be environmentally friendly, or at least meet or beat the current standards. And that specialist, that energy specialist, is there to show how the technologies that you're going to be using, or the design methodology that you're going to be using, is going to meet or beat those current standards. Depending on your type of project, someone that gets missed out quite a lot at the beginning, but they're being asked for more and more on projects, are structural engineers. Quite often people will leave talking to a structural engineer until after planning. They see it as a bit of a waste of time. Why work out how something should be built before you know that you can get planning permission for it? Well, the problem there is, particularly on barn conversions at the moment, if you're looking at PD barn conversions, one of the biggest pushbacks from local authorities has been to say that the structural frame that exists within the barn is not capable of holding up the building that you'd like to create. So you need a structural engineering report to prove that that building is sound. On from that, structural engineers often deal with flood as well. So if you're building in or near a river or a lake, you'll be using a structural engineer to produce a flood report to prove that constructing the home that you want to build is not going to cause a flood risk for the future. So number 6, an arboriculturist. Arboriculturists are tree specialists. They're the people that we bring on site to look at the existing trees that are there, and to basically decide whether or not they're of any merit, whether they need protecting and forming part of the application, or whether they're a poor asset and can come away and it's okay to cut them down to build the house that you want to build. If there are trees on site, there is not a local authority in this country that will not require a tree survey to help get your project over the line, particularly if you want to remove any of those trees. And then on from the trees, the next thing to think about are the species that might be on your site. So this can again be the same whether it's a fresh site or whether it's a barn that's being converted. We would bring in an ecologist who would look to see if we have any protected species or any birds or anything that we might damage in the process of construction, and it's their job then to advise us on how we can build whilst protecting the wildlife that's there. Another specialist is becoming more and more important when we design are highways consultants. What a highways consultant does is looks at how your project is going to allow cars and pedestrians to interact with the existing network that's already there. Again, it used to be the case that we could get a 2D plan and draw a couple of vision splays. So what a vision splay is the line of sight that a car or a pedestrian can see down the road. And it used to be a relatively simple process. Now, quite often we're asked to do surveys on how many cars are parked in the area, how fast the car's coming towards the site, and then that affects the vision displays and the way the road is laid out, or the way that the access to the road is laid out for your property. Landscaping is also another very, very, very vital part of any planning application. Quite often we'll see that, particularly if we've got a contentious project, that local authorities want to see what the whole project is going to look like. It's not just about a building plonked and sitting in the middle of a site. It's about the soft and the hard landscaping that leads up to that building. How's water going to run off of those products? How are they going to last? Are they going to be, they're going to flower throughout the year? Are we going to have a site that looks great in summer but looks awful in winter? Those things are also now really, really important to local authorities. So a landscape architect can often be really useful to help a project get through planning. Now, the last one on my list is something that I think is super important, but it's cut from so many projects, and that is an artist impression of the project that you want to do. When we put in planning applications, the majority of the drawings are flat 2D drawings, and they give a good idea of what something's going to look like, particularly if you're very used to reading plans and elevations. But a proper artist's impression of of how that house is going to sit within the landscape, how it's going to sit alongside its neighbours if it has any, really helps to sell the story, really helps to get neighbours on board and other consultees on board that aren't so good at reading plans. It's one of those things that it's too easy to cut from the budget because it seems like a frivolous extra expense. But certainly, if you want something to really tell the story and help get the project over the line, artist impressions are really useful. Now, as with everything in life, that's not an extensive list. There are still more consultants that can be required on certain projects. For example, you may be in an area that needs a heritage or a conservation specialist to come on board and give some additional advice. But those are the key 10 that on most projects you'll find will need at least 75%, 80% of those consultants. Unfortunately, the way that the planning system works these days, you have to invest quite a lot of energy, effort and money in the beginning of a project to help get it over the line. But what that does do is that does mean that the projects that are being passed are normally of a much higher quality because they've had the right people doing the right work at the right time to help tell the story of why this house should exist. So I hope you found that helpful. As always, just pop some comments in below if there's anything that we can do differently, or if there's any other topics that you'd like to hear about. Please subscribe and tick the little bell so that you can get an update of when new content's going out. Like the post, share it, follow us on Facebook and Instagram. My name's Neil Scroxton, and this has been Who Do I Need to Employ to Submit a Planning Application?